Remember Edwin VanCleef? Most people know him as the final boss in the old Deadmines dungeon, but did you know he was actually responsible for rebuilding Stormwind City after the First War? So what on earth happened to him? His story is actually pretty crazy, so let's get into it. So Edwin VanCleef was originally the elected leader of what was known as the Stonemasons Guild. A very long time ago, during the First War, Stormwind was actually razed by orcs and left devastated. This prompted Stormwind's House of Nobles to contract VanCleef's Stonemason Guild to rebuild the broken city. The guild spent about 10 years rebuilding Stormwind in a massive effort requiring many engineers and artisans. After a long time of facing poor working conditions, long hours, little support, and deferred wages, they successfully restored the city to its former glory. However, when the time came to pay their actual fee, the Stonemasons Guild was met with silence. In the time it took the Stonemasons Guild to rebuild the city, the House of Nobles had actually racked up a massive debt through military spending, crippling the kingdom's economy and leaving them unable to pay the guild their rightful wages. In addition to the looming debt, a mysterious noblewoman by the name of Lady Katrana Prester appeared, who secretly showed support to both sides and discouraged everyone from compromising and encouraging more unrest until the nobles firmly decided they were unhappy with the stonemasons' work and would not be paying them their rightful wages. This left the stonemasons with only a meager compensation for 10 years worth of work. Little did anyone know at the time, however, the mysterious Lady Katrana Prester was actually Onyxia masquerading as a human. After attempting to bribe some of the more senior members of the Stonemasons Guild, including VanCleef, with government jobs in order to keep quiet and essentially betray their fellow guild members, Edwin VanCleef spoke out demanding a fair payment to all who worked on the reconstruction to make things right. In response to this, the House of Nobles actually ordered the dissolution of the Stonemasons Guild, resulting in riots breaking out across the city and the seemingly unintentional death of Queen Tiffin Wren by a stray thrown rock, who had actually been the guild's biggest supporter and advocate amongst the nobles, advocating for better working conditions and fair pay. This caused a ripple effect of outrage throughout the city towards the Stonemasons Guild, forcing them to flee the city to the rural outskirts of Westfall or face persecution for the death of the young queen. While there, Edwin VanCleef and his remaining escaped guild members made their way into the Deadmines, an old labyrinthian cavern that once accounted for a third of Stormwind's treasure reserves and gold production, but had been abandoned during the First War. Inside, VanCleef and his group of former laborers encountered Captain Bramblebeard and his crew who had inhabited the cave system sometime after the First War. Edwin VanCleef and the remaining stonemasons promptly killed the captain and his crew and set up their base of operations aboard the ship within the Deadmines. Afterwards, VanCleef united the remaining guild members using his unique training in stealth and subterfuge to form what is now known today as the Defias Brotherhood. VanCleef prompted his new Defias to ambush travelers, capture the local goblins as tankers, and even create new mechanical devices and weaponry. They began attempting to cut off supplies and trade to Stormwind City by razing local farms and robbing travelers attempting to enter the city for trade. Some of the Brotherhood members were actually even captured and sent to the Stockades, Stormwind's high-security prison, where they would then rebel and descend the prison itself into chaos. The Defias Brotherhood later attempted to take Elwyn Forest, but they ultimately failed. However, before his final invasion and deconstruction of Stormwind could ultimately occur, a group of adventurers from the Alliance learned of his plan and assaulted the ship within the Deadmines, defeating VanCleef and seemingly disbanding the Defias Brotherhood for good. On his body, adventurers would actually find an unsent letter, which is addressed to Barris Alexton, the current city architect of Stormwind and a former member of the Stonemasons Guild under the leadership of Edwin VanCleef, who had ultimately agreed to the House of Nobles government jobs bribe. But this isn't the end of the story, as Edwin VanCleef had a young daughter aboard the ship at the time who witnessed everything. As most of you know, this may be the end of the story for Edwin VanCleef, but it is definitely not the end for the Defias Brotherhood. So tell me, do you feel he was justified in his rage? I kind of do. I'm almost Team VanCleef here. I feel a little bad. But if you're interested in hearing the rest of the Defias Brotherhood story, more about this mysterious daughter, who most of you might know if you've leveled a rogue, subscribe, comment whose team you're on, and like the video for more.